How to talk to anyone. Become better at social skills and small talk. Written by Craig Yeager. Narrated by Queenie Walsh. Chapter 1. How to Conquer Shyness. We all are basically social creatures, and we are able to function optimally. Research and experience prove when engaged to some degree in a community, our community might be small, but having one seems to be what matters. All we really need do is observe what happens to prisoners in singular confinement for any prolonged period of time to recognize just how detrimental social isolation is to people. And yet, at some level, communicating with others makes most, if not all of us, uncomfortable. Even the most gregarious and confident people remain knowledgeable about and impacted by the viewpoints of others, and specifically the opinions others have about them. Even if we tell ourselves such viewpoints don't matter to us, if everyone in our community turned all of a sudden against us at the same time, even the most hardy of us would have a challenging time staying untouched. When in the company of other people, our minds instantly construct a map of the minds that surround us. That is, we're continuously thinking of and thinking what other individuals are thinking and making judgments about having reactions to those fantasies. If we think a person in the room finds us attractive, we judge them to have taste and feel a buzz of enjoyment. Or maybe, if we experience low self-esteem, we judge them to have bad taste and feel an increased sense of self-disgust. If we think a person in the room finds us overdressed for the occasion, we'll feel ashamed. Shyness, in one sense, then, represents a hesitation to engage with others for fear of being humiliated. This explains why we can feel shy in one framework and not another. In a space loaded with relatives with whom we're thoroughly familiar, it's harder. However, we should take note of the fact possible to feel shy, not simply because we know them, but simply because they know us. They have already seen our normal conduct 100 or 1,000 times over, and we already know their reaction to it. So normally, we're not afraid to show that conduct, to show our opinions and say the important things we want to say, just because the risk of embarrassment in such company is low. In a room filled with complete strangers, however, no such performance history exists. How, we really wonder, will we be received? We do not know. How prepared are we to run the risk of shame? That's what figures out how shy we feel. I would argue the essential reason for shyness, because of this, rests on where we place our attention. If it's on the responses we might produce in others, and how they might, for that reason, see us. We risk overanalyzing each thought, word, and deed and might find ourselves, as the terminally shy typically do, incapacitated by a painful self-awareness. If, on the other hand, we put our attention on everybody else, willfully ignoring our issues about how they may respond to us, we may find some room to breathe as ourselves. How, then, can we move our focus in this way when in many cases it seems veritably padlocked to our self-image? Though not by any mindful design, I found my attention gradually being retreated from myself and to others as I developed not only a real interest in other individuals. The more intrigued by a subject we end up being, the more our sense of self appears to vanish, but a real interest in their concerns. To put it simply, the more compassion I found myself feeling for other people, the less I become concerned about how they saw me. Not because I no longer cared about how they saw me, but rather simply because I was paying less attention to it. It's actually rather hard, I discovered, when dealing with an entire room of complete strangers about whom you actually feel concerned or even interested, to simultaneously feel concerned about what they think about you. Empathy or compassion, then, could represent the ultimate treatment for shyness. It might seem weird to imagine ongoing into a room filled with complete strangers whom we not only don't know, but have no reason to correctly guess are even suffering, that they remain in need not only of empathy in general, but of ours particularly, being, as we are, a total stranger to them. However, to this I'd respond, who is not struggling with something? It may be a massive or cataclysmic something, but everyone hides, to some degree, a secret inner life in which they struggle on an everyday basis. However, you don't really need to know exactly what everybody battles with to come at them presuming they really need your compassion. If empathy, the being concerned about another's happiness as if it were your own, ends up being the predominant emotion you feel in approaching complete strangers, or at the minimum, interest in them does, I want to suggest shyness will become for you a thing of the past, or at the very least, far less of a problem in the future. The trick to dealing with shyness, to put it simply, isn't in developing greater self esteem. It is in developing a greater love for your fellow humans. Chapter 2: The Top 7 Ways to Make Small Talk Work for You. Less clear is what to do when you're in a situation where nobody is talking, but you feel the desire to chat. Maybe you're standing in a long line at the snack bar and would like some distraction. Or you have read all of the publications in a physician's waiting room and you feel like getting a grievance or two off your chest. No one is making eye contact with you, and, in fact, everybody else appears flawlessly content to remain in their own separated worlds. Go into the art of the small talk. How to know when to start a discussion, how to keep one going, or how to keep your thoughts to yourself are skills that you can obtain and surpass with practice. And the 7 ideas beneath can help you give the basis for developing your own style. I began thinking about this problem after reading an outstanding piece by Psychology Today blog writer Matthew Hudson in The Science of Us, arguing that New Yorkers, at least, should speak with one another more. In describing several studies examining the advantages of small talk, he pointed out that the underlying issue was pluralistic ignorance, the idea that everybody assumes that no one else wants to do something that everybody actually wants to do. We all would prefer to talk when we're bored, waiting, uncomfortable, or just looking for the solace of another human's voice, though nobody wants to chime in first out of fear of seeming ignorant or forcing himself or herself onto unwilling listeners. If you, thus many others, ignore the positive influence that your chatting would have on people you don't know, These discoveries suggest that you should give it a shot. As Hudson notes in summarizing one such research study, the delight of casual conversation was shared. Even introverts who aren't naturally given to chatting with complete strangers state that they have more fun when they step outside their comfort zone. Small talk may be preferable to the alternative, at the very least as displayed in the research, but you could be wondering whether this is usually true in all circumstances. Is social talk always good? You can probably think of situations when the last thing in the world you wanted to do was hear another person's chit chat. Perhaps even the timeless situation of being in the dental professional's chair while having your teeth cleaned up. You certainly are unable to utter any more than several grunts, but the dental professional is free to babble on constantly about all the minutiae of her or his daily life. You could also remember a time when you had work to do or just wanted peace and quiet throughout a stressful commute or trip, but were unable to go away from enforced friendship with your fellow traveler. It is natural enough to shy away from random conversations with complete strangers with these memories planted in your awareness. Canadian scientists Glenn Posner and Stanley Hamstra, 2013, analyzed the influence of chit-chat on a physician's competence through a research study comparing the efficiency of health students while carrying out, of all things, pelvic examinations. They created 3 conditions, all involving a plastic model on which the med students were supposed to practice. In one condition, the students examined the plastic model only. In the other 2 conditions, a woman patient accompanied the model to replicate the experience of treating an actual person. In one of these conditions, the female patient spoke only minimally. In the other, she launched into a variety of small talk subjects. The results suggested that small talk could undoubtedly be detrimental during medical examinations. Students attended to their job least efficiently when paired with the chatty patient. It seems, then, that there are situations when, regardless of how awkward the silence might be, people are better off not dividing their attention between bantering and completing the task at hand. In social situations, social talk could be more suitable to silence, but when it comes to anticipating general happiness and discussions, people seem to prefer big talk. University of Arizona psychologist Matthias Mao and his partners, 2013, compared the happiness scores of almost 80 undergraduate students at the end of each of 4 days, during which they noted snippets of all their conversations. Using the 300 recordings they acquired per participant, Mel and his team found out that people ranked their well-being much higher the more of their day's discussions were substantive. Example, conversations about relationships versus little. Example, chatting about food. In general, individuals' well-being was higher when they were participated in any kind of talk versus silence. But there was a big dive in well-being scores for those big talks. Mel and his team concluded that the happy life is social instead of singular and conversationally deep rather than superficial. So we know that social talk can produce greater wellness, but not as much as huge talk. Still, in a small talk circumstance, should you then skip over daily superficialities and dive instead into philosophical questions? If so, Would not that seem particular to your companions? Taking the conclusions of these discoveries together, these 7 guidelines will help you navigate your way to the best middle ground. Number 1, do not talk when somebody else is trying to focus. If you're with an individual who's trying to concentrate, whether on your teeth or other things, it might be best to let that person, her or his job. The other individual may appreciate having some psychological bandwidth exposed to work on the task at hand without having to sound conversationally smart. Number 2, when you're with a total stranger or complete strangers, see if anybody makes eye contact with you. Many people who aspire to get involved in a conversation will typically give you some sort of signal. If they're consistently averting, they may be enjoying a minute of zen and happy to be so, or just not in the mood for idle chatter. Number 3, enable yourself to enjoy the silence at least from time to time. You could be a highly extroverted individual who truly likes to connect with others, but don't feel you need to fill every empty space with words, even when you're with your loved one. You don't really need to have hours and hours of steady conversation to prove how much you really love or feel close to each other. Number 4, if trivial conversation seems in order, find common and neutral ground. There's absolutely nothing more awkward than making a remark about a situation with a stranger in which you've said something inadvertently insulting. Perhaps you see a person who is uncommonly tall, brief, thin, or heavy, and feel like sharing your judgment of this person's appearance with your seatmate on the bus. For all you know, that seatmate who appears average to you has a relative or friend who isn't quite so average. Presuming that you share the worldview with somebody because you share a seat is a pretty dangerous assumption. Number 5, take a small break in between sentences. If you release a consistent stream of terminology, you'll have no way of knowing if the other individual is interested in keeping the discussion going. Allow your conversational partner an actual chance to not only get a word in edgewise, but to bail out graciously if he or she desires. Number 6, don't overshare. You may feel it's safe to reveal personal details to somebody you will never see again, such as somebody on a trip or in a new place. But you should remember the 6 degrees of separation principle. For all you know, the person you've just confessed to about cheating on an exam is buddies with the instructor's spouse. Number 7, be open to much deeper discussions. If things are going well, your conversational partner could be interested in moving from little to medium to huge talk. Nevertheless, do not jump into the deep end unless you have tested those waters one toe at a time. You might be high on the introversion dimension and so prefer time to yourself. Even so, with these ideas, you can get yourself of at the very least some of the social opportunities that can benefit your well-being and those of the people you're with. Chapter 3, More Advice About Small Talk. Making table talk does not come naturally for me. As a matter of fact, the idea of speaking with a complete stranger at a mixer makes me want to hide behind the ferns. Don't mind me, I'm not really here. It's not just me. For any born introvert, making social talk can be downright agonizing. But table talk can result in important relationships. 3 years ago, I met my fiance at the airport. If I hadn't mustered the bravery to say, "Hey there," some other woman would have hopped in line right in front of me, so to speak. The truth is, anything can happen when you stick your neck out. You may meet a new client, stumble on your next roommate, or meet a future good friend. You just never ever know. So, how do you cultivate a more extroverted you? All of us hope that the other person will assume the burden of a conversation. However, master conversationalist and the art of small talk author Deborah Fine says that it depends on you to take on the responsibility of making others feel comfortable. Here are some guidelines to get you talking. The polite intro. When you're introducing people, or if you're introducing yourself, say names slowly and offer info. This is Larry. He just got a new job as an urban organizer here in town. Or you can mention typical interests. Both of you are Red Sox fans. What was her name again? She said her name and it flew out of your brain a nanosecond later. It will do you no good to forget the name of the person you are speaking to, so open your ears and truly listen. One trick is repeating the name of the individual several times. Be prepared. Formulate a few questions that will produce interest. This is an example. Think about the day's current events. Make certain to maintain to date with the daily paper or tune in to your radio station and study up, be it earthquakes, hurricanes, elections, or scandals. Making eye contact. Look the person you are talking to in the eye. This is something Bill Clinton practices routinely. He makes the person in his presence feel as if he is the only one in the room. When we listen to every word and absorb every little thing that's said, it creates more meaningful discussion. Something to work with. Do not give brief answers. If a person inquires about your occupation, don't say sales and leave it at that. Give him something to work with. Let him know what area of sales you work in and if you travel, where you have gone to just recently. Now, let's discuss me. Asking a person what he likes to do for fun can be a big door opener. That is simply because people love to discuss themselves. Show an interest in their interests and recreational activities. Ask leading questions. If the individual went to a display, ask what she liked most and why. Chapter 4. Even more small talk tips. I want to get along and polite, but I just can't think of a thing to say. Here are some methods I try when my mind is a blank. Number 1. Comment on a subject common to both of you at the moment. The food, the room, the occasion, the weather. Yes, talking about the weather is a cliche, but it works. How do you know our host? What brings you to this event? However, keep it on the positive side. Unless you can be hilariously amusing, the first time you can be found in contact with an individual isn't a good time to grumble. Number 2. Comment on a subject of general interest. A good friend scans Google News right before he goes any place where he needs to make small talk so he can say, "Did you hear that Jeff Bezos is buying the Washington Post?" or whatever. Number 3. Ask a question that people can answer as they please. My favorite question is, what's keeping you busy nowadays? It works simply because it permits people to choose their focus, work, volunteer, family, pastime, more suitable to the inevitable question. Well, inevitable at least in New York City. What do you do? A variant. What are you working on these days? This is a specifically beneficial evade if you should know what the other person does for a living but cannot remember. Number 4. Ask open questions that cannot be answered with a single word. Number 5. If you do ask a question that can be replied in a single word, instead of just providing your own info in response, ask a follow-up question. For example, if you ask, "Where are you from?" An intriguing follow-up question might be, "What would your life be like if you still lived there?" Number 6. Ask getting to know you questions. What papers and publications do you register for? What internet sites do you check out frequently? These questions usually expose a surprise enthusiasm, which can make for great conversation. Number 7. Respond to what an individual says in the spirit in which that remark was offered. If he makes a joke, even if it's not uproarious, try to laugh. If she offers some surprising information, did you know that the Harry Potter series have sold more than 450 million copies? React with surprise. Number 8. Be slightly unsuitable. I cannot use this method myself just because I do not have the necessary gumption, but my husband is a master. Over and over, I hear him ask a question that seems partially too prying or too saucy, and I feel a wifely irritation. But then I see that the person to whom he's talking isn't angered. If anything, that individual seems captivated and flattered by his interests. Number 9. Follow someone's conversational lead. If a person undoubtedly drops in a referral to a subject, sense that thread. Confession. I have a streak of perversity that inexplicably makes me want to prevent people in their conversational desires. I am not exactly sure why. This could be, I remember speaking with a man who was certainly dying to speak about the time that he'd lived in Vietnam, and I just would not comply. Why not? I should have been excited to find a pretty good topic for a discussion. 10. Along the same lines, counterintuitively, do not try to talk about your preferred topic because you will be tempted to talk too much. This is a technique that I often struggle to follow, but I should follow it. I am going to get obsessed with a topic and want to talk about everything, the time, with everyone I meet. And I have a lot to say. My spouse is a martyr to the subject of happiness. Chapter 5. When you are bad at it. Chit-chat is the generally needed prerequisite to some deeper conversation. If you are not a natural at it, you might be well served by a step-by-step cookbook method, although I apologize ahead of time to those of you who are repulsed at human interaction being minimized to a formula. Number 1. Arrive early. No, don't be the first to walk in. That could increase your self-consciousness. Hang out near the entrance, and when some people have gotten in, take a deep breath, stand straight, shoulders back, chin slightly up, and walk in at a moderate pace. Existing reasonably early avoids overwhelm, and makes it much easier to be seen and to choose whom you may approach. Number 2, approaching or getting approached. If you want to try to get approached, stand about 10 feet from an attractive person or group. Keep that direct and make a flicker or two of eye contact. Give it a minute to see if you are approached, or if it's a group, you get a wave or perhaps word welcoming you to join. If you'd rather approach somebody, find a comfy place from which to observe, perhaps a corner of the room. That gives you the chance to choose whom to method. If you identify somebody, it is better to see if she or he'll start the conversation with you. That's both because it moves the burden of beginning the discussion to the individual, and if the person is taking the effort, she or he has more financial investment in you. So continue as suggested above, stand about 10 feet away and make a flicker or two of eye contact. If after a minute there's no response, it's possible they're shy or unconcerned to your nonverbal overtures. You really need to make the first move. Number 3, first words. Take another of those salutary deep breaths. Keep that chin slightly up, smile a bit, teeth a bit apart, but just a bit less it look like a salesperson's tactic. Then just say, "Hi there," in a pleasant but not abundant, trying too hard voice. Naturally, if you know the person, for instance, it's a coworker, say, "Hi," insert the individual's name. Wait a minute, the other individual might initiate, which, as mentioned, builds the person's investment in you. Nevertheless, if not, make an ecological comment. No, I'm not talking about environment change. I'm talking about a comment about the instant environment, a point of commonness between you. Examples. At a party, you could say, "How do you know the host?" Or, "The room's embellished perfectly." While it is generally wise to err on the side of positivity, periodically a negative can be more bonding. For instance, "The music is not precisely quiet, is it?" At a work-related meeting, an ecological comment may be, "I'm in the HR department. How about you?" Or, "Have you heard the keynoter before?" Or if you want to try being negative, for instance, another pump up the troops revival meeting. Number 4, listen. Truly listen. Sure, your next utterance is made easy if she or he asks you an important question, but many people feel it is intrusive to ask questions so quickly, so they'll say something, generally still small talk. Listen to both the words and tone, adopting a frame of mind of curiosity. That will help you produce an important question to ask, which minimizes the burden on you to come up with something to say. Number 5, look for a hot button. Let's say the individual doesn't give you an opening, but in your reaction to, "Hi, pretty place, isn't it?" just says, "Yeah." It's time to ask a more forward question. You can typically quickly build a bond by asking an important question to uncover one of their hot buttons, something they care a lot about, normally their job, family, pastime, pop culture, health, or these days, Donald Trump. The following question can often reveal one of their hot buttons. So, what are you thinking of these days? Again, listen both to the words and tone. Number 6, react in parallel. Respond by expressing common ground. An example could be this. Let's say you asked, "So, what are you thinking about nowadays?" And the person responds, "Work. Things are really busy." If true, make a bonding comment like, "Me also. It seems like the pressure's ever growing." Take note of the fact the pressure's ever growing adds an emotional element to the conversation, deepening the relationship. If you notice it's premature to comment, ask a follow-up question such as, "What are you working on?" Number 7, go deeper or change the subject. That first thread might be worth following. Keep listening, generally making bonding remarks and asking questions, perhaps deepening ones. In the aforementioned example, it might be, "Work can get frustrating. At least I, in some cases, feel that way. How about you?" If the first thread appears to be going absolutely nowhere, try a much different one. To stay away from sounding like an interrogator, rather than jumping right in with another question to uncover a hot button, set your question with the reveal of one of your hot buttons. An example could be, you might say, "Want to tell me something about yourself? When I'm not working, I am pretty involved in community theater." Number 8, capstone the convo. Stay vulnerable to when you feel it's time to end the conversation. When you do, after they have finished an utterance, stick your give out. Shake their hand and say, for instance, "I'm going to get something to drink. I guess it's time for us to take our seats," or some such. If it's a discussion you would like to continue, say, "I've enjoyed this. I would welcome an actual chance to continue the conversation." You might even make it specific. "Hey, may I have your contact number or email address? I'd enjoy continuing the conversation." Of course, nothing as complex as discussion can be decreased to a formula. But if you have a problem with small talk, this structure may be a place to begin. Try it, adjust it, and later maybe ditch it in favor of your own method. Chapter 6, the top 10 tips to talk about anything with anybody. All of us fear the awkward silence when we are expected to make social talk with a total stranger. Maybe it is at a business supper and you are sitting next to a new associate. Perhaps you're at a wedding and you meet a friend of a good friend. How do you get past the preliminary introductions? How about when you're in a high-stakes circumstance, like a job interview, where you're expected to outperform the competition? Then there's always the blind date. How can you turn it into the start of something big, presuming you want to? Everyone has a very different conversational style. If you have an extroverted personality, you can most likely be planted in any social situation and at the very least get the social talk started without feeling too much pain. If you're on the reclusive side, however, these situations can make you cringe. All you can think about is how much you wish to escape. Many people are someplace in the middle on the introversion-extroversion measurement. But everyone has moment of success and everyone has moment of utter failure when the pressure is on to be scintillating. Success is the casual conversation domain, is a lot like success in other social circumstances, including but not limited to online chats, job interviews, and social networking. The standard premise is that you find common ground with the people with whom you communicate by using the correct amount of self disclosure, empathy, and tact. I have found that maybe the most helpful guide for social talk sphere comes from the person centered approach to therapy of Carl Rogers. In the 1970s, Rogers made tremendous contributions to counseling and clinical psychology by teaching therapists how best to listen, reflect the feelings of their clients, and turn these reflections into change prompting insights. Clearly, you are not going to perform psychological therapy in your chats with random social buddies. However, you can use the insights provided by Rogers to smooth over the rough spots in your chats with complete strangers. Contribute to these pearls of wisdom a little social psychology, and you've got an ideal formula for prospering no matter who you're talking to or how much you dislike or are adverse to meeting strangers. Enough small talk. Let's go on to those 10 tips. Number 1, listen. Too often, when we are meeting someone new, we try to fill the dead moment with chatter about ourselves. Far better for you to listen first, talk second. Obviously, a person has to begin the discussion, but if you and your companion actually listen to one another and not worry about what to say next, things will flow more naturally. Number 2, make sure to use compassionate reflecting abilities. The next level of Rogerian communication includes restating what you heard, or at least what you think you heard. This will show that you have been listening and will also enable your conversation partner to clarify if, in fact, you are way off in your judgment of what you thought you heard. Number 3, switch on your nonverbal detectors. Rogers was well known for his capability to read the nonverbal communication of his clients. It's most convenient to do this if you refocus your attention from how you're feeling inside to how you think the other person is feeling based upon that person's nonverbal cues. If the person seems uncomfortable with where the discussion is heading, shift gears. Although some people enjoy discussing politics, religion, and sex, others would rather keep things light. Learn how to assess the impact of what you are saying by reading physical cues like posture, eye contact, and hand movements. Number 4, avoid breeze judgments. If you follow steps 1 to 3 above, you will be not as likely to misjudge the person you are speaking to. But all of us suffer from the temptation to hurry to conclusions about people based upon superficial hints. Things aren't always what they seem to be when meeting somebody for the first time. If you've listened carefully, showed back what you heard, and kept your nonverbal channel open, you'll be not as likely to make an incorrect judgment based upon external cues. Number 5, be an online investigator or behavioral profiler. You can help your case even further if you have the chance to learn in advance who you'll be meeting, along with a little bit of their history. Then you will be prepared to ask questions that relate to the people you're meeting. If you do not have the opportunity, practice your behavioral profiling by utilizing the visual hints available. Think Sherlock Holmes, who could infer occupation by looking at someone's hands. Number 6, don't assume people will agree with you. Research shows that lots of us participate in the assumed resemblance predisposition. It's not safe to conclude that because you are opposed to one or another political party, that the people you are talking to is also. Disputes can produce pleasurable conversation. If you presume everybody feels as you do, however, it's likely you'll start on the wrong foot and end up with it in your mouth. Number 7. Try to learn a lot from each interaction with a beginner. A person you've never met before might have been places and done things that you have not. Many people from other spots, including but not limited to nations aside from your own, can give you new perspectives. They will only open up if you show that you're interested. You can broaden your knowledge of other areas, cultures, and countries, ultimately making you a more intriguing conversationalist as well. Number 8. Stay on top of the news. Recognizing with existing events is definitely the best way to have enough topics to bring up in any discussion. The subjects do not have to be weighty, nor do they need to include in-depth know-how. Even understanding what the top box office hit or what the hot songs or videos are is better than being oblivious to what is going on in the world around you. Number 9. Know when not to talk. There are those that prefer no conversation at all, especially in restricted circumstances such as public transportation. You may think it is great to while away the dull hours on a long plane ride by conversing with your seat next door neighbor. Yet, if you're getting hints from that traveler or others around you to the contrary, then take the hint that your silence would be considered golden. If you find yourself constantly doing this any place you go and getting negative feedback, make sure you won't be tired by bringing along something to read or do to keep yourself entertained. Number 10. Don't overshare. Maybe you've heard that it is okay to tell strangers your most private secrets. After all, you'll never see them again, right? There are 3 flaws in that argument. Number 1, you may see that individual again, or that individual might know a person you know. In the 6 degrees of separation world that we live in, it is amazing how rapidly your personal secrets can spread. Number 2, people feel awkward when they hear a complete stranger's inmost tricks. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you feel if you heard somebody you hardly know tell you about their love affairs, health conditions, or family disputes? Number 3, oversharing can make you a bore. Although we can choose not to read the tedious everyday ramblings of our Facebook good friends, it's a little more difficult to do this face to face. If you return to pointer number 3, you should be able to judge when you're about to commit the sin of TMI. Way too much information. Meeting new people and having to make social talk isn't everyone's favorite pastime. But if you allow these simple pointers, you might find yourself taking pleasure in some of the extras to stabilize your inner introvert. Chapter 7. Are young people's social abilities declining? For more than a whole decade, grown-ups have reasoned that innovation is having a detrimental influence on young people's social skills. New research may clean up this dispute. Theories about how kids and teens have lost their ability to communicate successfully due to technology have become promoted and circulated widely on social media by authors with little evidence to back up their assertions. Research has strengthened this speculation too, including a UCLA research study that conducted an experiment with 51 sixth graders for 5 days, barely a large enough sample for dependable conclusions. One fact that many people agree on is the significance of social skills to young people's life success. If social skills are truly declining, then scientists should be sounding the alarm. But are they? In the latest edition of the American Journal of Sociology, researchers compared parents' and instructors' understanding of kids' social skills from data collected in 3 longitudinal studies. Downey and Gibbs, 2020. This new study, led by Douglas Downey of Ohio State University, is the first to take a deeper dive into a pretty big representative sample of American youth during years when kids' use of the web in the home increased considerably, targeted at addressing the question, are children's social skills decreasing? Researchers used statistics gathered by the Early Youth Longitudinal Research Study of 1998 and 2010 and the National Education Longitudinal Research Study of 1988. In all, more than 16,000 K-8 children were represented. In each research study, teachers and parents or caretakers were asked questions related to kids' social skills, including their capability to form and maintain relationships, show feelings in positive ways, and interact well with people different from themselves. The same questions were asked of instructors and parents or caretakers over the 12-year span. From 1998 to 2010, instructor understandings of kids' social skills remained relatively the same, as did their evaluation of kids' self-control. The exact same pattern of perceptions continued as children progressed through 1st, 3rd, and 5th grades. In fact, instructors ranked children's social skills somewhat higher in 2010 than in 1998. A similar narrative was reported by parents. Moms and dads ranked their children's social skills much as teachers had, with partially higher evaluations at the end of the 12-year period than at the start. The bottom line is that no decrease in social skills was noted by teachers or parents during this period of increased internet activity. Social abilities are one aspect of growing. While this new research study presents a comforting picture that social skills haven't suffered as the outcome of technology use, it is important to bear in mind that sociability is only one element of growing. Capabilities like strength, self-awareness, and resourcefulness, to name a few, play an essential role in kid and adolescent development. A growing number of academics are studying these and other growth-related qualities of flourishing, which includes the potentially positive results of web use on children. For example, researchers have observed how email and social media help students build and maintain social networks. New media can improve existing relationships, negotiate parent-child relationships, and link children to online interest-driven groups that enhance their creative skill. Recent research about graphic animations, GIFs, suggests these pictures can communicate nuanced and intricate layers of meaning that are not possible with text-only or in-person communication. For that reason, Research studies are starting to show that people may overstate the negative effects of innovation, not only on social skills, but in other areas as well. Actually, studies suggest that new innovations may be enabling more efficient face to face connections. Why social abilities are not declining. Downey and his associates reflected on the results of their research study, asking, why do kids' face to face social skills not decline in the way most would have expected? They believe that moral panic over the predicted effects of new innovation led grown-ups to believe that children's social skills were in an entirely free fall. That belief implied the assumption that social ability develops in a direct way. For instance, if one believes that more time on the internet results in fewer in-person interactions, one may also believe a decline in social skills will follow. Kids develop social skills in far more complex and non-linear ways. The web might lower social skills in some ways and promote them in others. It isn't a zero-sum experience. A 1998 study at first revealed a negative relationship between kids' screen time and social skills, which includes an increase in depression and loneliness. A follow-up research study by the exact same scientists in 2002 no longer found those negative associations. Why? The change in data could suggest that as children have become more proficient at using technology, the negative consequences have diminished. Rather than weakening social relationships, the authors suggest that screen-based innovation might be better understood as offering a new platform by which kids seek independence. From parents, develop group standards and sanction peers, build and maintain identities, and in some ways develop social skills. Based on this research study, should children's screen time be limited? If parents are worried about a decline in kids' social skills, this research study says no evidence that restricting screen time would have significant benefit. That said, there might be other good reasons to limit screen time. There are many varying viewpoints and research, including unexpected insights from teens on the disadvantages of social networking and internet use. This has been How to Talk to Anyone, Become Better at Social Skills and Small Talk, written by Craig Yeager, narrated by Queenie Walsh.